Hi everyone. We're going to go ahead and go through the spreadsheet that we worked on in class. If you remember, we were working with cars, and we just call it the Salyers Auto Sales. So we went over the VLOOKUP function and the IF function, but we didn't get an opportunity to discuss the payment function. So what I've done is I've simply deleted everything that we did in class, and I'm going to walk us through those three functions again. You can always fast forward this recording, or you can pause it to keep up with what we're doing. So one of the things that I'm going to start with is I'm going to go up here to the date, and I'm going to delete that. And if you'll recall, I talked about having a function that automatically will put the date in for you. So the function that we use for this is equals, and you're going to simply type in the word today. And as I begin to type, you'll notice that the function tag appears. So I'm going to simply select that and hit enter. Now what this function does is it automatically updates the spreadsheet each time you open it. So today is January the 29th. If I save this document and then open it up on February the 5th, the date will show February the 5th on that day. So that's the first function. I'll go back in here and double click so you can see it. It's simply equals today. So the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the VLOOKUP function again. We discussed this in class, but I just want to walk you through it again. So you'll notice on our spreadsheet we have the names of the people who are purchasing a car. We have the make of the car that they're going to purchase. We need to establish our cost by using the VLOOKUP function. We have an option here of including a Bose system with the vehicle that they're purchasing, and we're going to calculate the total for those who do want to add a Bose system. We're also going to look at the monthly payments if they're going to take out a loan. So we'll look at each one of these functions. Okay, let's start by going back and looking at the VLOOKUP function. And the VLOOKUP function is simply going to look at this table that we've created to the right. So each time we see Avalon, we know that it's going to cost the customer $33,500. Camry is $23,700, and so on. So this function simply associates the makes or the models over here with this table. So I'm going to start by going in cell C5, and I'm going to bring up the VLOOKUP function by going into the formula bar and selecting the FX, which is the insert function. Now you'll notice here I already have VLOOKUP at the very top of this select function box. If you don't see it in this bottom box, you can simply type it at the top where it says search for a function. Since it's already here, I'm going to make sure that I select the VLOOKUP and then OK. So the first thing it's asking for is asking for the lookup value. It looks for a value in the leftmost column of the table. The leftmost column of the table is the Toyota make or model, and it's the Avalon, the Camry, the Corolla, and the Prius. So these two are going to associate from column B to columns I and J. So it's going to look up the value for the make or the model. So I'm going to simply select cell B5. So we're going to look up the cost for the Avalon. Back in my function arguments box, I'm going to go down to the next white box that says table array. And this is where we select the table, but we don't include the titles or the subtitles. I'm going to highlight the table array and select F4 so that we go ahead and apply the absolute referencing to that table array. And remember, the reason that we do that is because it's no longer linear and we are jumping all the way over to this table each time. So we want to make sure that absolute referencing will always reference back to this table. So the next box says the index number, and if you'll read here, it says looks for a value in our table. So I'm going to go back over here to our table. And if you'll recall, we have two columns. We have the make, I'm going to move this over a little bit. We have the Toyota make or model and the cost. So we want to associate the Avalon with the cost. So that happens to be column 2 in our table. So in the column index number, I'm going to simply type 2. In the range lookup, I'm going to type false and then select OK. So the Avalon is $33,500, and we'll go and check it in our table and it's correct. At this point, we can simply go to our fill handle and double click, and it will drag down and associate each one of these makes or models with the cost. Now you'll notice it automatically added that because I already had a function in cell C12. So I'm going to delete that and we'll walk through that one more time. So I want to add up all of the cost. So in cell C12, on the Home tab, I'll go to the Editing group and select Auto Sum. When I do that, Excel automatically selects the numbers above the cell, and in this case it's correct, so I'm going to hit enter. The next thing we're going to do is use the if function, and we'll be using that in column E. And what the if function is going to do is say, if this cell says yes, in other words, if the customer wants to have a Bose system included with their vehicle, then we're going to have to add a little bit extra cost to what you see in column C. Now I'll scroll down just a little bit and you'll notice that the Bose system in cell B15 is 5% of the cost of the vehicle. So we have to calculate that mathematically. So using the if function, I'm going to go to cell E5. And if you remember, we go back up here to the formula bar and select the FX, which is the insert function. If you don't see the if function in the select a function box, you can type search for a function and simply type if and then hit go. In this case, the if function is showing, so I'll select it and hit OK. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the logic test, and this checks whether a condition is met. So the if function is saying if this cell, which happens to be D5, is equal to yes, and we'll put that in parentheses. If that's true, if they want a Bose system, then we want to make sure that we add the 5% to the cost of the vehicle. So mathematically, what this is going to look like is the cost plus the cost times the 5%. That gives us the amount. Cost plus the cost times 5%. Now, again, we'll be going down to cell B15 each time, so we're not in a linear path, which means we really need to make sure that B15, the Bose system, we use the absolute referencing. So I'm going to make sure that I'm in B15 in my box and select the F4 key. So now you can see that there's a $sign before the letter and before the number. So the absolute referencing is now in place. At this point, I'm going to go to the false. So let's look at what we have so far. In the function arguments, we're saying if we want a Bose system, if that's true, then we are going to multiply the cost times the 5% of the cost. If we don't want a Bose system, then we simply are going to pay what the car costs without the Bose system. And I'm going to select OK. So you'll notice that this total is a little bit larger than the cost because we're adding the 5% for the Bose system. So I'm going to pull down, and now we can see that the cost of the vehicle that doesn't want a Bose system is the same in the total. For those who do want a system, you'll notice that we've added the 5%. I'm going to get rid of the hashtags in column E by making that a little bit wider. So now we have what it's going to cost our customers if they do or do not want a Bose system. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is we are going to create a monthly payment. If we are taking out a loan for this vehicle, we have already how many years we're going to take a loan for. So Drake is only going to take out a loan for 1 year, whereas Brown is going to take out a loan for 3. So we're going to calculate the payments using the payment function. So to do that, I'm going to go in the first cell that we want to apply this in G5, and I'm going to again search for the function by going to the insert function here. At that point, I'm going to type in PMT for payment and select go. That brings up some of the functions that have to do with payments, and I'm going to select the PMT and select OK. Alright, I'm going to move this down just a little bit so we can see what's going on. So the first thing we're going to notice is it's asking for the rate. So the rate we can see over in this area is 4%. So we're simply going to select the rate first. Now again, this is not linear, it's jumping from one cell to the other, so we want to make sure that we add the absolute referencing to the rate by selecting the F4 key. The next box says NPER, and if you'll read the description, it says it calculates the payment for a loan based on constant payments and constant interest rate. But before we go to the NPER, we need to go back up into our rate because we are going to be looking at the rate of our interest rate, and we're going to be making monthly payments for a year. So each year has 12 months in it. So in the rate box, we need to make sure that we have that divided by 12 since we're going to be doing it for 1 year. Now, back down in the NPER calculates the payments for a loan based on constant payments. We are going to select F5, which is the year. That's saying that we're going to only take out a loan for that 1 year. And we're going to multiply that times 12. The last thing we're going to do is go to the present value, or the PV. This calculates the payment for a loan based on constant payments and a constant interest rate. So our present value for our vehicle is in column E. So E5 is the price of the vehicle. We've added the Bose system to that, and each time you use present value, you're always going to put a minus sign in front of the present value, and in this case in front of the E5. So let's look at what we have. We have the rate, which is B16, and you'll notice it's over here, divided by 12. Then the NPER is the number of years that we are going to take out a loan, and we're going to multiply that times 12 for 12 months. The present value is in column E. We've added our amount if we want a Bose system, and we always put a minus sign in front of that. So I'm going to simply select OK. And that gives us what our monthly payment will be for a year. As I drag this down, you can see what the monthly payments will be for each vehicle for the years that they are going to be taking out a loan. Again, we're going to go to cell G12 so we can have our totals. We look in the editing group on the Home tab, select Auto Sum, and select Enter. So now we have the VLOOKUP function. We have the IF function, and we have the payment function. I hope this helps.